coach and also has a master's from Columbia. So she is very, very well qualified. She's been with us for a while now. She offers one-on-one coaching. So we're excited for her to do this. So Cheryl, let me turn it over to you now and let's get started.
Sounds good. Thank you, Bill. Welcome to everyone. My name is Cheryl Lala, like Bill said, and I'm excited to kind of talk today a little bit about networking and getting your foot in the door in terms of networking. I definitely think that networking is one of those things that is the least glamorous and probably the least fun, but the most useful. So I appreciate everyone showing up here today. Before we get started, I would love to kind of get some introductions from you all, the participants, so that I get to know you a little bit better. If you all could just give me an introduction, that would be wonderful. Just your name, your sport, and how comfortable maybe you are with networking right now. Maybe you're super comfortable, maybe you are not comfortable at all. And so I'd love to kind of gauge the audience a little bit and just see how comfortable you are to start out with. And if you have no comfort level, that's fine as well. You can just tell me absolutely no comfort level or, the best. I know this and I just wanted to get a little bit of a refresher. So I am going to kind of turn it over to who I see in my participant panel. I'll just call on you if that's okay to make it kind of go smoother. And I promise not to do that again, but I'll just do that for the intros. The first person I see on my list here is Erica. Erica, would you like to give just a brief intro?
Okay. Hi, I'm Erica McCall. I play for the Indiana Fever, the WNBA, and I guess my comfort level of networking is semi-comfortable. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. The next one is Kara.
Kara? Me.
Hi, Kara. Yes.
Hi. So I am a javelin thrower, and I'm thrilled to be here today with people's faces that I recognize and love talking to. Comfort level with networking is pretty good, but I feel like I have more experience being the focus as an athlete at events, talking to corporate people that are there, like to learn about Olympic movement stuff. So I'm more interested in like how to connect with people on what they're about.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Alicia?
Hi, Alicia Clark. I play for the Seattle Storm in the WNBA, and my network, I'm probably like less than comfortable. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Melissa.
Hi, I play ice hockey. What else am I supposed to say? I'm from Connecticut. And yeah, I'm not very comfortable at all either. Yeah, happy to be here.
All right. Awesome. Well, hopefully at the end of this, for those of you that do feel uncomfortable, you will gain a little bit more comfort level to this. Next on my list is Victoria.
Hi, I'm Victoria. I play ice hockey. I'm from Toronto, and I would say my comfort level is okay, and I'm excited to gain some more experience with this chat. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And then next on my list, is it Kira?
Hi, Tierra Ruff and Prep, the LA Sparks. My networking comfort level is probably very low. So I'm just here to learn as much as possible.
Great. Thank you. And Shannon.
Yes, Shannon Robery here. I've done a decent amount of networking. I do better in the one-on-one setting, I found, than in the big group scenario. But yeah, definitely have room for improvement.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So it does seem like there's a wide range here in terms of comfort levels. And I definitely anticipate that. I'll give you a little background on myself. Like Bill said, I am from the golfing world. And so if anybody knows golf, it's a very introverted sport. And I do consider myself quite the introvert. And especially when I was competing, this was probably one of the things that I felt the least comfort with. But when I did go to Columbia and go to graduate school, we took a semester of just like career coaching. And one of the things that we did was networking, right? And so like anything else, I took my athletic hat, if you will, and I learned the skill, right? I honed the skill. I practiced it as much as I could. And now I have to say, 10 years later, I feel super comfortable with networking. That's not something that I would have said 10 years ago by any means. But one of the things I just did want to preface is that it is learned just like you learn any other skill in your sport. And the more you practice it, the more you'll get better and comfortable with it. So this is just another opportunity to practice. And if you have very little comfort, that's okay. If you have more comfort, that's okay too. Because as you know in your sport, the more practice you get, the better outcomes you have anyway, right? So we're going to go ahead and start the screen share. And please, if there are questions that come up along the way, feel free to write them in the chat box. Feel free to stop me, interrupt me. I don't mind at all. You can absolutely ask questions whenever you feel the need. I'll try to pause a little bit too between slides so that you can have some space to ask questions, but please feel free to either enter them into the chat or ask us directly. Alrighty, so this series is professional networking, and it's part of our webinar series presented by Parity for female athletes. We are going to start off with some of the objectives today. And so the objectives today are to really empower yourself with the tools needed to, pitch your accomplishments. And I want to pitch your accomplishments in an athletic realm. So you don't necessarily need to kind of think that, you have to exclude all of your athletic accomplishments. I want you to include those in networking, and so that it does make you kind of stand out and seem unique to whoever it is that you are pitching yourself to, including the C-suite executives, right? The people that may make us the most nervous. Part of networking is kind of like, I would call it, for golf, it's like the first tee. I don't know if anybody is kind of, understanding of like golf and how we play, but basically there's a lot of like first tee jitters, right? So when we're starting off the round, how do we get over those? Or starting off the tournament, starting off the match, how do we kind of get over those pre-round jitters that we may have? And in the networking world, that is called an elevator pitch. So your elevator pitch is how you kind of start networking. And by you having a really good and concise elevator pitch and constructing that today, that will give you kind of, the starting block to really start to network and hone your skills in and around networking. So we are going to be talking about constructing your elevator pitch today. And then just being able to kind of understand your personal narrative and be able to connect that into really anything, your sports, industry, other industries, business opportunities, sponsorship opportunities, just understanding how you can pitch yourself in the best possible way. Now, as I kind of mentioned, we are going to start off with the elevator pitch. And the elevator pitch, like I said, is kind of like that first introduction of yourself. It's about 30 to 60 seconds. And it's just a slang term that was developed for people who, want to give a very short and concise narrative of who you are and get kind of to the point directly, right? So it's, tailored for you. It's tailored for maybe the future opportunities that you're going to be looking towards. It's basically giving a 30 to 60 second spiel. If you were in an elevator, right? If you're in an elevator trapped with somebody that you really wanted to talk to and wanted to start that conversation, and elevators are known to be quite silent, what would you say? What would you say? So we're going to go through and kind of get to the elements of that elevator pitch and then branch it off into further networking. So when can you network? When are networking opportunities? A lot of times athletes will think, hey, I'm only going to network at sporting events or galas or anything, that says like it's a networking event, quote unquote. But in reality, you should be networking all the time. You should be networking when you're traveling. You should be networking when you're hanging out with friends, honestly. You should be networking when you're facing sponsors and all of the other things that I've kind of mentioned in terms of events, galas, and media gatherings. Of course, those are also networking events, but it can be as simple as just when you're traveling, when you're at airports, when you're in car rides, when you're in your, Lyft and Uber, when we kind of resume our lives here. Networking can be done anywhere, any place, kind of anytime. Whenever you're meeting somebody new, think of it as a networking opportunity and even an opportunity to practice some of the skills necessary for when you get in front of people that may make you a little more nervous. Okay, so we are going to prepare now to network. What are the things you need in order to network effectively? Well, for one, we need research. Two, we need to prepare. And three, we need practice. And this goes just like, when you are in your sport, when you are honing your skills, you always need to kind of research what the new and best practices are. You need to be prepared and you need to practice. These are things that you already know and you already do in your everyday lives as athletes. And so we're just going to take those skills and transfer them into an area of business and networking. Okay, so in terms of researching for networking, one of the things you want to do is it is going to feel a little bit like a class, right? So you want to be able to get onto the internet. You want to be able to get onto social media channels. You want to be able to research as much as you possibly can about the company or the industry that you're interested in. Maybe you have a company in mind that you absolutely want a sponsorship from, or you want to work for, or you want an internship for. Whatever it is that is your ultimate goal, perhaps you have that company in mind. Perhaps you don't. Perhaps it's just an industry that you want to get into. Maybe it's just, the sports industry in general. Maybe it's, the tech industry. Maybe it's real estate. Who knows? Whatever it is that is your industry, you can start by researching the industry or the company if you have those specifics. Obviously, the more specifics you have, the better it is. If you do know the company, then what resonates about that company with you? Same thing goes for the industry. What resonates about the industry? Why is it that you're particularly drawn to that industry? What are the qualities? What are the values? And that does, in this research, make you kind of dig a little deeper in terms of who you are as a person and what are your values internally. So you want to kind of start there and say, like, what are your values? What are the things that you find important? For many athletes, it's, I can't do the 9-to-5 job, just the traditional 9-to-5 going into office and doing that job. That may not be it for you. So it might be something different where you have a little more autonomy. What are your values? What are the things that you think that you bring to the table? What is going to be that perfect fit in terms of company and industry? And what is it that you hope to gain? I feel like number 5 here is probably the most important thing. What is it that you want to gain from the person, the company, the industry? And you want to be as specific as possible. You want to name it. So you want to say, I want a sponsorship. I want a job. I want an internship. And who are those people that are the decision makers that are going to be able to give you that job and give you that sponsorship and, give you the thing that is your need? You want to be specific. I know that can be really uncomfortable, especially for people who are not comfortable with networking, but in networking, we're kind of required to make the ask. And I want to get you comfortable with making that ask, whatever it is. So as you're listening to me right now, think of it as, what is it that you ultimately want? And just keep that in the back of your mind as we kind of move through the slides. Okay, so you're going to say, all right, well, Cheryl, how do we research? What do we do? One of the great ways to research is actually through LinkedIn. If you joined me for the LinkedIn webinar last week, I gave you an idea of kind of like the networking that does happen on LinkedIn, but there are a lot of executives and business professionals that are on LinkedIn. That is the #1 social media hub for business professionals and the place where the most recruiters go. And you can use this the same way in terms of, for sports. So if you have a company in mind, let's say for this example, it's Nike, you would just type in Nike in terms of the search field. You see the search field at the top left-hand side of the screenshot there. You would type in whatever company it is. So you can do a lot of research here, just typing in companies and then seeing in terms of your connections, who you may have in common with those connections. This is the reason why people update their profiles to include their job titles and their companies. You can link to companies on LinkedIn. And so basically LinkedIn will then sort all of these business professionals by company. And you can see if you have mutual connections. There's obviously a first connection. That means that you are immediately connected to them. There's a second connection, which means that you have one person in common with them. And there's a third connection, which means that you don't have anybody really connected with them. But you can still probably, send them a direct message and see if you wanted to connect. For those people that do have, first connections, you obviously just want to go ahead and reach out to those first connections. If you have a second connection, you want to see who is the link there. And if you know that person pretty well, maybe ask them to make the ask not to ask for you, but ask them to connect you to that person within the company that you're interested in. So that's just one way to do your research here, okay? Other ways obviously include just the internet as well. All right, so now we're gonna get down to kind of practicing your pitch, who you are, your personal narrative. Now, taking it back to kind of school days here, what are the elements of a good story? Well, our English teachers kind of taught us about what a good story is. We have the beginning, we have the middle, we have the end. There is some sort of conflict that's happening, the climax, and then you're making the resolution. So this is just, like a normal story arc, and this is what you want to keep in mind when you're crafting your personal narrative. Go to the next slide here. Okay, so we've put in some questions of this story arc to kind of help you gauge your narrative a little bit better. The beginning part would be, what are you doing now? So what is it that you're doing now? Just like you gave the introduction to me in the very beginning there, that was part of networking, just introducing yourself. Who are you? What are you doing now? Your passions and motivation for becoming an athlete. Why are you an athlete? I think this one is where your passion will really come through. And so, don't be afraid to say what it is that really excites you about your sport and motivated you to become a professional athlete. And the next part is your area of interest. So where are you headed, right? Yeah, you could be playing your sport, but a lot of athletes are thinking about business endeavors or thinking about other things as well. So where are you headed? It's very natural now for athletes to be thinking about other things, maybe related to their sport, maybe outside of their sport. So where are you headed? It could be anything there. And then, of course, why are you interested in those areas, and to make your ask like I originally kind of said a few slides ago. So this is just the story arc, how it relates to athletes. Okay, so if you are close to some paper, please grab some paper. We are going to start kind of doing an exercise, which just like writing things down. Maybe you're on your phone, just pull up the notes tab, whatever it is. I do want you to start kind of writing things down for yourself. So we're going to start brainstorming just individually. If you can, we're going to start with number one. What do you do? So just kind of write it down for yourself. It can be one word, it can be multiple words. Just sum up what is it that you do. List some of your biggest accomplishments there. So go ahead and just kind of list out, kind of brainstorm, what are your accomplishments there? And it can just be, that you don't want to go through maybe every accomplishment, but that you're a professional athlete and what sport you play. Your name, professional athlete, what sport you play. 2, what are your passions and motivators? What motivates you to play the sport? Why are you so passionate about it? Go ahead and take some time and just kind of write that down. And then, like I mentioned earlier, number 3 is skills. What skills do you bring to the table? What are your values? What are you interested in? What are things that people have said about you in terms that have been a great skill? Perhaps I probably already know this about each one of you. You're probably great time managers. You're probably super dedicated, super hardworking. What are some of the skills that you're bringing to the table here? And then number 4, what are you looking to do? And that could feel like a real big question right now. It could be anything, but if you can think as specifically as you can about this, like what is it that you want ideally from this? What are you really looking towards, maybe in conjunction with playing your sport or outside if you're playing your sport, if you're thinking about retiring? So just kind of brainstorm that out for yourselves right now. Write down a few notes, jot a few things down, and we're going to go to the next slide here, which is going to continue to reinforce this story. So we're going to do an exercise. So hopefully you have a piece of paper. Hopefully you've done a little bit of brainstorming somewhat. But I do want you to take just a few minutes and really kind of think about each one of the points and write it down in, a paragraph, maybe 3 sentences, if you will, and be specific about what it is you want. So we're going to do this right now. And I'm going to give you a few minutes. We're going to actually go to the next slide because I think that it's going to be helpful in terms of putting it kind of all together. So I'm going to stop talking for just like 5 minutes and give you some time to kind of think about all of these things. And again, I hope that this slide can just give you some guidance as who you are, list your major accomplishments, what are you interested in doing in sports now or after, what can you bring to a company, and what is your ask. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes now to just put these things down on paper or on an app. Okay, so hopefully you all have had some time now to kind of just write some of this stuff down. Maybe it was easy, maybe it was harder than what you thought. If anybody needs more time, please let me know in the chat box or raise your hand. All right, sounds good. So we're going to keep it going here then. This is more detailed, right, in terms of what your potential elevator pitch could potentially be. So, for myself, I'm just going to kind of pair this into kind of how I do this. My name is Cheryl Lala. I'm a former professional golfer. I played at UC Berkeley, and from there, I went on to play professional mini tours in America, Europe, and Asia. And now I am a founder of a nonprofit, and I specifically so I'm deviating here from my elevator pitch, I now use networking to kind of ask people for money in terms of my nonprofit. So that's what I predominantly use networking for, but that's my ask is like, can you pitch in some money to help our nonprofit grow in terms of programming? So concise, 30 to 60 seconds. And then from there, we ask, if they have questions, and that's what kind of starts us off in terms of networking and kind of facilitated Q&A with someone. So I would love to hear if anyone is comfortable. I'm not going to pick on you this time, but I would love to hear if anyone is interested here in sharing a little bit of their pitch. I know that this could be a comfort zone and a growth opportunity, but if anybody is comfortable to share their pitch, would you share it with us now?
I can try. This is Shannon.
Okay.
Let's see. So I'm Shannon Robery. I've been a Nike sponsored professional runner for 13 years, during which time I was a 3-time Olympian and 3-time world medalist. I'm most interested in a career in sports technology because I think my interest as a professional athlete uniquely positions me to rethink how we approach sports. I am nearing the end of my running career and hope to transition into a new career after the next Olympics. So I would love an opportunity to work as a consultant at your company and use my knowledge to help improve what you do.
Excellent. Excellent. That's super. So, if I was the person you were talking to, Shannon, I would think that was just absolutely excellent and say, absolutely, here's what I have open and what can I do? What does anybody else have any other feedback to give Shannon? I thought that was really well spoken and just, very concise and to the point.
Yes, I have one thing. I thought it was excellent too, Shannon. One thing I try to do is when I do these things is when you're doing your research, and particularly if you know who you're talking to, try to find a point of connection. So if they're from the Bay Area, or they went to a college, or if your parents go to that college, try to find that, because if the person has some connection to you, whether it's you directly, you went to the same school, you ran the same event, the likelihood that they remember you goes up.
Yeah, I love that. You're right.
Absolutely. And anyone else? I would love to have a couple of people share, even if you feel uncomfortable with it.
I guess I can give it a try. Okay. So I didn't really have enough time to write down my thoughts. I guess I was just jotting down a lot. So I'm just going to kind of go off of the format we have on the screen right now.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Hello, my name is Eric McCall. I am a professional women's basketball player, played for the Indiana Fever of the WNBA. Currently going into my 4th season. I graduated from Stanford University, where I went to 2 Final Fours, and was a academic All-American there. I'm interested in entertainment and media. So if you have any opportunities or internships within those realms, I would love to take upon those opportunities. I'm passionate about entertaining, singing, comedy, anything that makes people happy and wants to make them smile. So yeah, I guess I already touched on that. So yeah, if you have any opportunities, I'm looking to get into that, and thank you for your time, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you, Erica. So I thought that was great as well. What's your ask? What is your, what is it that you hope? You want to get a job maybe in media, or?
Yes, job in media, or yeah, something involving entertainment. I'm potentially looking to sports commentating, but I'm still kind of exploring my options for that.
Gotcha. Well, that's perfect. I think, as you start researching the companies or the people, right? Because that's part of it as well. As you research companies and you're going to be in the room with people, you want to research people as well, the people that you're going to be making this ask of. And so that's probably when it will get more specific. If you were, sitting there talking with an ESPN anchor, that would probably be a great way to just make the ask of them, like, hey, can I get into sports commentating? Do you have a spot open? I know that sounds a little forceful, but
yeah.
That is actually how it goes, right? So that is excellent. I won't comment on the Stanford because I went to Cal. There's a little rivalry there.
But I kind of shook my head.
I do have some red on. I do have some red on. So, but great. Thank you so much for sharing. I know that it's difficult to kind of put people on the spot and do this. The more that you do it in front of a crowd like us, the better it does get. And if there's anybody else that could offer Erica some feedback or, wants to try this, I think this is a great place in a safe space to kind of just try it.
I was going to say for Erica too, I don't know, and maybe I missed it, but if you have anything you can brag about, like you talked about your academic accomplishments, which were really impressive. If, as you want to transition into media or entertainment, if you have any experience, like a nugget of kind of showing your credibility in that realm that you could insert in to sort of say like, I have done such and such and would like to, pursue a career, just sort of to reinforce that this career you want to follow is something you've already gotten some experience at or have been successful at, if that's relevant. I don't know.
That's good. Yeah. I can definitely mention something along those realms. I actually performed, I don't know if it would relate to this, but I performed with Carrie Underwood last summer.
Totally would relate. I mean, yeah.
Wow. Sneaky low key, not.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tell us more.
Yeah, so there's an opportunity where Tamika Catchings told me that there's a competition where you can get to perform with her during her song called The Champion, and you get to rap Ludacris's part. You come on stage and rap with her. So that's what I got to do last summer. And it was the time of my life, and yeah, definitely one of the highlights of my life, getting to perform with her. And yeah, it was fun, and that's like something that reminded me, like, yeah, this is something that I want to do in the future.
Yeah, I feel like you could even say, like I learned that I could handle the pressure of performance through my basketball career, and it was reaffirmed through my experience performing with Carrie Underwood or something. But like, I mean, you there's no doubt that you know how to perform under pressure with like the lights shining, and then to have had an experience like that is very impressive.
Gotcha.
Also add one more thing is that if you don't have as something that you've done, you can also refer to classwork. So you can refer to projects that you did. Like if you want to do something that's outside of your sport and you're saying, oh, and I like media, and my interest became when I was taking class at, a 3-level class, and you talk about that experience. So it's not necessarily required that you've done it as a profession. You could have done it as a not-for-profit, or you could also have done it as a class.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
One thing I also want to add under "Are you offering any?" is you may not have a job opportunity or a sponsorship that you're interested in. I think a really neutral ask that actually works really well in a networking setting is, do you know of anybody that would be willing to have coffee with me so I can learn about XYZ? Especially if you're early on or in kind of the middle of your career where you're not in a position to take on a different role. Having kind of these video conferences or meeting in person is a huge help in networking.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Minji, I think you bring up a great point. I think, in terms of networking, oftentimes you'll hear this, in terms of job opportunities, it's not necessarily like the skill or whatever, it's like who you know. And so with networking, your ask could simply be, getting a cup of coffee, spending some time together, maybe doing a little, a shadowing opportunity or meeting with them within office just to kind of pick their brain. It doesn't necessarily have to be something more specific than that, as Minji was saying. And so it can just be kind of building the relationship, right? Getting an email, having a conversation, asking for advice. It doesn't necessarily have to be, the specific concrete job or sponsorship. Does anybody else want to share a little bit of their, starting point? Like, this is meant to be uncomfortable. This is, it's not meant to be easy. So does, one more person want to kind of share how they would kind of approach someone here?
I guess I'll try.
Thank you.
I'm going to kind of follow in the same steps as Erica and kind of go off screen because I've been jotting down and listening to all the feedback everyone's been giving. Hi, my name is Alicia Clark, and I am a professional basketball player for the Seattle Storm in the WNBA. I am approaching my 9th season. I am also a WNBA champion, and I am interested in the culinary world. I love food. I love what it symbolizes in bringing people together. And I really I think our values align really well. How you run your restaurant, and how you engage with customers and your employees. And I would love to maybe have an opportunity to sit down with you and see if you would be open to having some sort of mentorship with me. Because hopefully when I'm done playing, I would like to transition into potentially owning my own bistro or some sort. So I would like to know if that would be of any interest to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Alicia. That's excellent. And it was so specific and, to the point. I think, it's just in the first couple of sentences, everything that you encapsulated there. For people you're approaching, they're going to want to stop you right there and say, wow, tell me about the championships, tell me about your career. They're going to want to engage with you all just because you are professional athletes. That's where they're going to probably stop in that first sentence and say, oh my gosh, tell me more, and then you get to really develop some more conversation with them in and around what it is that you want. So that was perfect. That was, really naming who you are, what you're interested in, very specific, great ask. And also, engaging, super engaging, so that people are going to want to stop you and say, absolutely, tell me more about yourself. How impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other feedback for Alicia?
I really love the injection of why food is important to you. I think that kind of exposing yourself is always a good way to see if you can connect with people. And at the very least, I think people will learn more about you, which is always a good thing.
Great. Thank you for that.
I agree with Cheryl too, like at least in my experience with networking, I never found it difficult to get an interview or a networking opportunity with people in like really high places, because I think our accomplishments as athletes are really compelling. But I think that the key is then following up in that elevator pitch or in whatever that opening is with conversation points that'll get them to want to dive deeper into kind of what you could do and how you could contribute to the company. So using your accomplishments as the entry point, but then backing it up with substance so they realize you're the whole package.
Oh, that's great.
Wonderful. Great. And so this is really just meant to be an opening, right? So to very much so name who you are, name what you've done in 30 to 60 seconds. The conversation will naturally flow from there. The hardest part is starting the conversation, approaching people. And so this is one way that you would start the conversation. You would approach people. You can walk up to anyone and say, hey, my name is, and I am, and like Shannon said, absolutely, I haven't had any issues. I don't feel that I don't feel like I have all those accomplishments in terms of like the athletic world. Yes, I played, but I just say like I'm a professional athlete or a professional golfer, and people will stop me right there and they're like, wait, what? Let me talk to you, and then I move into more of what I feel, proud about. But for you all, I feel like, with the Olympians and, WNBA champions and just like playing these sports at such an elite level, like just right there, you're going to have such a great hook for people to want to ask you more questions and for the conversation to just flow so much more naturally from that point. This does feel a little bit, structured and stuffy, if you will, and it's meant to be that. When you first go in there and just ask and kind of name who you are, it's meant to be a little bit of a challenge, and then from there you're just going to allow your personality to go naturally from the questions that they're asking and what it is that you are asking for. So this is meant to be practiced. The more that you can practice it, the more you're standing in the mirror looking at yourself and going, making it different things. But you do want to practice it just like you practice your sport as much as possible in the mirror, to friends, to family, to partners, whatever it is, practice it as much as you possibly can. We'll move to the next slide here unless anybody else has questions.
I just want to add one thing that I've seen just generally with athletes. It's a huge opportunity. a lot of times athletes are used to having their game face on when they're making that introduction. And it's a lot of times the athletes and their credentials are so can be intimidating to the person that they're talking to. The more that you can be engaging with a smile or something that they can that can bring a humanity, the better that you're going to connect. Because what you don't want to do is just have an admirer. What you want to do is have somebody who's a champion and that believes in you as a person. And the more that you can connect with that person, it doesn't have to be with a smile. It could be any other way that you do it. It's more likely that it'll be more that, because what you don't want them to do is just ask you questions about your sport and not accomplish your goal. That's the wrong thing. And that can happen. And I see that happen a lot. You want to connect with them as a person so that they become using that sport as a way to open the door so that they can see you as a human so that you can accomplish your goals.
Great point, Bill. Great point. Okay, so now we're going to start kind of like the wrap up of this webinar. If you can, just take a few moments to reflect on the following. What did you learn? What did you learn from this webinar? How are you going to implement that into your life? What was the most challenging aspect of this exercise? Was it all of it? Was it certain parts that were more challenging than others? Were you able to identify when you were thinking about and reflecting on your pitch, basically the key experiences that you wanted to include? And were you able to make that ask? Were you able to kind of round it out with what it is that you're looking to get from talking with that person? So I would love to kind of open this up, even if you didn't share about your elevator pitch. If you you can answer one of these questions, you don't have to answer all of them. Were you able to make your ask on your notes? Were you able to kind of put it down on paper or put it down on your phone? Were you able to identify those key experiences? What was challenging? How will you implement this? If anybody wants to share just one answer to these questions, that would be wonderful.
This is Kara. I think what I have learned is that it's okay to ask. I think I often, like what Bill said, I'm used to basically fielding questions and being uncomfortable with something of the other person. And I probably just haven't been in the right networking situations to feel comfortable asking. But the fact that it is a normal part of a networking situation for like maybe both parties even to be looking for something is good to know. Because it feels one-sided either way a lot of times, but to know that that's like an expected thing to make an ask makes me feel better.
Good, absolutely. It is an expected thing, absolutely.
I sometimes found it hard, and I still do, like, if you are still actively competing, figuring out ways that you could be gaining experience or doing projects that fit within the kind of confines of the professional athlete lifestyle, or whether it's seasonal or something you can do throughout the year, and how it would fit in a company and being creative in that way. That for me, and and that is also unique from company to company, but I know that that's been something that I've struggled with in the past.
Yeah, and I think, Shannon, some feedback would be, maybe just asking for an email address, and how do we stay in contact? How do we stay in contact? Because you are still competing, and you don't necessarily have the time due to training and traveling. How do we stay in contact? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Anyone find this challenging? This, I know it's meant to be much more of an interactive webinar. Anybody find this challenging?
This is Melissa. I found it challenging, especially since I'm kind of on the younger side. I'm just out of college and I'm still playing, but I honestly don't really know what I want to do. So this kind of kickstarted like the brainstorming for what I want to do in the future, and that I think that part was more difficult for me than to even like begin to start talking to you guys. Sorry. But yeah, I think that part was definitely difficult for me.
Melissa, one thing I think it's great that you're starting so early, because you can do, like, since you maybe aren't even needing, like, maybe you find somebody to ask for, but maybe your ask is just those informational interviews. Like, if you have an industry you think you're interested in, like, to start talking to people in it. And at least for me, as I evolved, I kind of evolved to the point where I identified sports technology as something I was really interested in. But I sort of started out with this whole big pie of opportunities, and then it became like a wedge of opportunities. And then through the informational interviews, I was able to, like, kind of narrow it into a slice. And I'm still figuring things out, but through those conversations with people who you think you might like, who are maybe in areas that you're interested in, I would imagine you'd be able to start to identify, like, yes, I like that, I want to know more, or no, that's not right for me. But
Right.
It's great you're starting so early.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I also I could give you a technique that helps a lot. And I want you all to imagine the following scenario. You're at a restaurant and you're eating, and the service is really, really bad. And you're kind of frustrated, and you're thinking, you're not going to leave a good tip. And then the person says to you, "Oh, it's my first day and I'm just new on the job." You instantly, all of us can remember being new at something, and you cut that person some slack. So consider this. You all are a lot of times transitioning into new and something new. And there's nothing wrong with what being a little nervous and say, "Hey, look, I really appreciate this. This is one of my first experiences in corporate America. So I appreciate you taking the time with me." I'm telling you, that's another technique that you will instantly, it works with a lot of people, so that that they engage with you more.
Absolutely. That's a great tip there as well. And Melissa, thank you so much for sharing. I think that this is something that is challenging just from my own personal experience. I felt like I started late. I started at 30, once I was done playing professionally. And I realize now that I didn't start late. I started at the timing that was right for me. And I think that that's the timing for everybody. Everyone is unique in their timing. And so it felt like I was starting late because I was 30 years old and just learning how to network at that point. But I realized, like anything, I was busy doing other things, and it's a learned skill. And I took the time to learn something new at older age, and I still realize that, like, 30 is not old by any means, just in the sports world, sometimes it feels like that. So, thank you for being vulnerable and speaking to what the challenge is, because this is challenging. And I will tell you from experience, it does get easier.
All right. Cheryl, did you want to add anything else before we end it up? Add anything else?
My only last bit of advice is just to practice as much as you can, just like you do your sports. Practice as much as you can. It will become easier. And practice with safe people in the beginning, maybe friends and family, and then branch out a little bit to strangers that you meet on the streets, and then maybe to people that really make you nervous after that. But just practice. And thank you so much for being here. And if you want to reach back out to me, please feel free to email me personally, and let me know how I can help you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And, we want to thank you all for participating. And we really want you to know that thank you for attending, and we hope you benefited from this. Another thing I meant to start this off with is almost like an empathy. A lot of you all were training for the Olympics. So I can only imagine how much this has to be a setback. And for that, you have some folks over at EOS who really can sympathize. And we're hoping that next year, those of you that are postponing it are just as good next year. We also hope that you attend some of our other free sessions, and that you consider being a part of our Parity online sponsorship product that's going to be exclusively for professional female athletes. You can look at the website as it's been at www.paritynow.co, not .com, .co. And you will also be over time to find more free webinars. But please reach out if we can be helpful. When Cheryl said we want to help, we do. In addition to these free webinars, if you want to practice your session, reach out to Cheryl and someone on our team will help you. This is just our contribution to one of our core constituencies, which are female athletes, and we really want to help, and we hope you take us up on that. So you all have a good day, and I hope to see you at another session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.